Fans of Storage Wars are mourning the shocking death of Darrell Sheets. Sheets passed away in his Lake Havasu home early this morning. According to multiple media reports, officers who responded to his home say it appears he died by suicide.
Darrell Sheets' death didn't just shock fans, it immediately reignited rumors that had followed him for years. Known as the Gambler on Storage Wars, he built a career on high-stakes locker finds and unforgettable auction wins, becoming one of the show's most recognizable faces. But behind the scenes, health struggles and a sudden withdrawal from public life left unanswered questions that never fully went away. So what exactly happened in his final years? And why did his own wife step forward after his death to confirm what fans had been speculating all along? Join us as we uncover what has been confirmed about Darrell Sheets' death. The man before the gambler. Long before reality television cameras turned storage auctions into entertainment, Darrell Sheets was grinding through the business the hard way. Born in California in 1958, he came of age in an era when thrift stores weren't Instagram-worthy vintage boutiques, but practical places where working people stretched their dollars. The storage auction circuit found him in the early 1990s. Most people saw abandoned units as monuments to financial failure and forgotten belongings. Darrell saw something else entirely. Opportunity wrapped in mystery. Profit hidden behind roll-up doors. And most importantly, the adrenaline rush that came from not knowing what you'd bought until the lock came off. 32 years. That's how long Darrell chased the high that storage auctions provided. The moment before the bidding started, when anything seemed possible. The tension as competitors drove the price higher. The calculations running through his head about whether to push further or walk away. The physical act of cutting the lock and rolling up the door. The revelation of what he'd actually purchased. Some days he struck gold. Other days, he bought junk. But the uncertainty was the entire point. Darrell wasn't just acquiring merchandise to resell. He was purchasing the possibility that this unit, this day, this gamble might change everything. His reputation grew throughout Southern California's auction community as the guy who would go big when everyone else hesitated. Conservative buyers calculated maximum bids down to the penny, factoring in resale values and overhead costs. Darrell operated on instinct. He trusted his gut over spreadsheets, emotion over logic, and he became successful precisely because he was willing to take risks that terrified more cautious competitors. This approach created a pattern that defined his entire career and eventually his life. When his bets paid off, they paid spectacularly. When they didn't, the losses hurt. But Darrell kept playing because the game had gotten into his bloodstream. The auction floor was where he felt most alive. That addiction to the rush, to the gamble, to the validation that came from trusting his instincts and being proven right. That addiction would later make it impossible for him to walk away even when his body was screaming at him to stop. Then, in 2010, A&E came calling, with an offer that would transform his private obsession into public spectacle. Let's get into the details. The birth of the gambler. When Storage Wars premiered in December 2010, nobody knew whether audiences would actually care about watching strangers bid on abandoned storage units. The network was gambling that the cast's personalities could transform mundane business transactions into compelling television. Darrell Sheets became the show's secret weapon almost immediately. His nickname wasn't chosen randomly by producers. The Gambler was an accurate description of his entire approach to the business. While other cast members specialized in specific types of merchandise or played it safe with calculated bids, Darrell swung for the fences every single time. The cameras loved him. His reactions when finding valuable items were genuine explosions of joy rather than manufactured drama. His disappointment when a unit turned out worthless was equally authentic. Viewers connected with him because he never pretended to be anything other than exactly what he was, a guy who loved the hunt and wasn't afraid to show real emotion when the stakes were high. His legendary find came early in the series and cemented his reputation forever. He cracked open a unit and discovered original artwork by abstract expressionist painter Frank Gutierrez, multiple pieces that had been stored and forgotten while accumulating serious value in the darkness. That single gamble netted Darrell $300,000, one of the most profitable discoveries in Storage Wars history. It was the kind of score that justified every losing bid he'd ever made and proved to everyone watching that his instinct-driven approach actually worked. But Darrell brought more than successful bids to the show. He brought a personality that couldn't be faked or coached. Over the course of the series, Darrell appeared in more than 100 episodes, becoming one of the show's most recognizable faces. He worked alongside other auction regulars like Dave Hester, Jared Schultz, and Brandy Passante, sometimes collaborating, often competing, always adding energy to whatever scene he appeared in. The show transformed Darrell from a successful regional buyer into a national celebrity. But that fame came with a hidden cost. Darrell wasn't just himself anymore. He was the gambler, a persona that came with specific expectations. Fans wanted him to make big bids and find incredible treasures. Producers wanted drama and excitement. Everyone wanted Darrell to keep being the person who took risks and made great television. The problem was that the gambler was a young man's game, and Darrell wasn't getting any younger. The physical demands of hauling furniture, sorting through heavy boxes, and spending hours on his feet at auctions were taking a toll that nobody watching from their couches could see. The stress of maintaining a television career while actually running a business was grinding him down. And the pressure to keep delivering the personality that had made him famous was exhausting in ways that wouldn't become obvious until much later. The warning signs were accumulating beneath the surface, invisible to viewers but increasingly difficult for Darrell to ignore. His body was sending signals that something fundamental needed to change. The question was whether he would listen before it was too late. The answer came in 2019, and it was delivered with the brutal efficiency of a heart attack. Let's uncover what happened to him. The body's final warning. In 2019, Darrell Sheets suffered a heart attack, a sudden, terrifying event that draws a line through your life, separating everything into before and after. Before the heart attack, Darrell was the gambler, the guy who trusted his instincts and made bold moves. After the heart attack, he was a 61-year-old man whose body had just informed him that the life he'd been living was unsustainable. Recovery from a heart attack isn't just about physical healing, it's about psychological recalibration. Darrell had to rethink everything: the activities that had once felt exhilarating, the adrenaline of competitive bidding, the physical labor of sorting through units, the long days on his feet at auctions. All of those suddenly carried genuine danger. His doctors almost certainly told him what they tell every heart attack survivor: reduce stress, change your lifestyle, slow down. But slowing down meant abandoning the identity he'd spent 32 years building and over a decade performing for television cameras. It meant stepping back from the auctions that had defined his entire adult life. It meant admitting that the gambler could no longer afford to gamble with his own survival. Darrell began appearing on Storage Wars only sporadically after 2019. The show continued filming and airing new episodes, but Darrell was no longer a regular presence. Viewers noticed his absence. Some fans assumed he'd simply moved on to other opportunities, or decided to retire from television. Others worried that his health issues were more serious than publicly acknowledged. The truth was more complicated than either assumption. Darrell was trying to figure out who he could be in a world where he was no longer the person the cameras had made famous. He was navigating the impossible transition from the gambler to someone else entirely, and nobody had prepared him for how excruciating that process would be. The decision to step away from the storage auction business entirely must have felt like a kind of death. For someone whose entire adult life had been defined by the hunt, the bid, and the reveal, walking away meant severing the connection to the only work that had ever truly mattered. But his body had made the choice for him. The heart attack had drawn a line, and Darrell couldn't cross back over it no matter how much he wanted to. So he made plans to leave. Not just the auction business, but California entirely. He would start over in a new place where nobody expected him to be the gambler anymore, where the past couldn't follow him, and he could build a new identity from scratch. That plan led him to Arizona, to the desert, to Lake Havasu City, and to a future that would turn out to be far shorter and more tragic than anyone could have imagined. What are the details of these tragic events? Exile in the desert. Lake Havasu City sits in western Arizona along the Colorado River, a desert community known for intense heat, retiree populations, and geographic distance from the entertainment industry that had made Darrell famous. The move represented more than a change of address. It was a geographic statement that the chapter of his life involving cameras and storage auctions had closed permanently. The landscape is harsh and beautiful. Desert terrain stretches in every direction. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 110 degrees. The isolation is real and absolute. For some people, that isolation is healing. For others, it amplifies whatever pain they're carrying. The question was, which category Darrell would fall into. He opened an antiques store, channeling his decades of experience finding valuable items into a more stable, less physically demanding business. The store made sense on paper. It allowed him to stay connected to the world of collectibles and treasures without the risk and stress of competitive auctions. It was a sensible transition, the kind of move that looked responsible and forward-thinking to anyone observing from the outside. But antiques stores require patience, routine, and the ability to wait for customers rather than chasing the next big score. For someone who had spent 32 years addicted to the adrenaline of live auctions, the slow pace of retail must have felt suffocating. There were no bidding wars or dramatic reveals, just inventory, overhead costs, quiet days when nobody walked through the door, and the slow realization that this new life couldn't provide the highs that had once sustained him. Darrell's social media presence during this period showed a man trying to adapt. He posted about his store. He shared memories from his Storage Wars days. He interacted with fans who still remembered the gambler and wanted to know what he was up to. But beneath the surface, something was clearly shifting. The posts became less frequent. The energy that had once defined his public persona seemed muted, as if the person behind the screen was going through motions rather than living fully. Friends and family likely noticed changes that the public couldn't see. Depression often follows major life transitions, especially when those transitions involve simultaneous loss of identity, purpose, and physical capability. Darrell had lost all three. The man who had once been defined by his willingness to take risks was now living a life built around caution and limitation. And that contradiction must have been excruciating to live with every single day. Most never figured out how much that transition affected him until April 22, 2026, when everything changed forever. The morning Lake Havasu City police found him. At approximately 2 a.m. on April 22, 2026, officers from the Lake Havasu City Police Department responded to a call at Darrell Sheets's home. What they discovered would send shockwaves through the Storage Wars community and devastate fans who had followed his career for over a decade. Darrell was found dead from what appeared to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The man who had survived 32 years of high-stakes gambling, a serious heart attack, and the collapse of the career that had defined him had made a final, irreversible decision in the darkness of an Arizona night. The initial reports were careful and respectful. The Lake Havasu City Police Department released a brief statement confirming that they had responded to the scene and that Darrell had been found deceased. No additional details were provided at that time, but the language of the announcement told anyone paying attention exactly what had happened. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a natural death related to his heart condition. This was something else entirely. The news hit social media like a shockwave. Fans who had watched Darrell for years struggled to process that the gambler was gone. The man who had always seemed larger than life, who had brought so much energy and enthusiasm to every episode, who had made storage auctions entertaining. That man was dead at 67, and the circumstances were devastating. For 2 weeks, the cause of death remained officially unconfirmed, while the Mojave County Medical Examiner's Office conducted their investigation. But everyone already knew. The circumstances, the language of the police statement, the absence of any alternative explanation, it all pointed in one terrible direction. On May 5, 2026, the Mojave County Medical Examiner's Office made it official. A spokesperson confirmed to USA Today and other news outlets that Darrell Sheets had died by self-harm, and the cause of death was listed as a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The manner of death was self-harm. A&E released a statement expressing their grief. Cast members who had spent years working alongside Darrell also shared tributes and memories. They posted photos from old episodes, recalled funny moments on set, and struggled to reconcile the energetic, risk-taking personality they knew on camera with the profound pain he must have been carrying in private. Fans flooded social media with shock and grief. For many viewers, Darrell had been a constant presence in their lives for over a decade. Someone they invited into their homes every week through their television screens. The parasocial relationship between reality stars and their audiences creates a unique kind of mourning when tragedy strikes, because fans feel they know these people intimately, even though the relationship exists only in one direction and through a heavily edited filter. Comments sections filled with people sharing their favorite Darrell moments, the Gutierrez art find, his reactions when discovering valuable items, the episodes with his son Brandon, the enthusiasm he brought to every auction. People were trying to hold on to the version of Darrell they knew from television, while processing the reality that his private pain had been invisible to everyone watching. But beneath the public mourning, uncomfortable questions were beginning to surface. What happens to reality television personalities when the cameras stop rolling and the identity they've built for public consumption no longer fits the life they're living in private? What responsibility do networks have to the people they transform into public figures? Did Darrell get any support at all? What reality television doesn't show you? Darrell Sheets's story forces a brutal reckoning with what reality television does to the people it transforms into public figures. Shows like Storage Wars aren't scripted dramas where actors play characters and then go home to their real lives. They're built around actual human beings whose genuine personalities and real struggles become content for mass consumption. Those people don't get to clock out at the end of the day and return to being someone else. The identity the show creates becomes the identity the world expects them to maintain forever. For Darrell, Being the gambler wasn't just a nickname or a role he played on camera. It was who he was supposed to be at all times. And that expectation became a prison when his body could no longer sustain it. The persona worked brilliantly on television. Bold, enthusiastic, willing to take big risks for big rewards. That's compelling content that keeps viewers engaged. But what happens when the person behind that persona can no longer physically or emotionally sustain it? What happens when a heart attack makes the risky behavior that defined your television personality genuinely dangerous to your survival? Nobody prepared Daryl for that transition. Nobody sat him down and said, "Here's how you build a new identity when illness takes away the old one." Nobody provided the kind of support system that might have helped him navigate the psychological devastation of losing the thing that had given his life meaning for 3 decades. Daryl earned his living from storage auctions and his Storage Wars salary. But reality television compensation rarely provides generational wealth. Episodes of Storage Wars reportedly paid cast members between $2,000 and $8,000 per episode, depending on seniority and negotiation. Even at the higher end of that range, appearing in 100-plus episodes over several years doesn't create the kind of financial security that allows for comfortable retirement, especially when medical expenses from a heart attack are factored in. When health issues forced Daryl out of both the auction business and regular television appearances, his income streams dried up. The antiques store in Arizona was a reasonable attempt to create new revenue. But retail operations in small desert towns don't generate the kind of money that storage auctions and television work had provided. The financial pressure alone would have been crushing, but combined with the loss of identity, purpose, and cyberbullying, it created a perfect storm of circumstances that left Daryl vulnerable in ways that nobody watching from the outside could fully see. Do you think Daryl would still be alive if he hadn't left Storage Wars? Also, was it the sudden transition or the cyberbullying that really got to him? Share your thoughts below, and remember to like and subscribe. Click the next video to continue exploring untold stories from reality television.